Dupree, a literacy teacher at the Island School, develops many activities which help her to learn as much as possible about her students' strengths and interests as she works on her curricular goals. In this module, we'll focus on her observation of her students' strengths. In subsequent modules, we'll see how she builds on their strengths. Today, students are building various structures. All of the students are completely engaged, which gives Mary a chance to observe their kinesthetic and spatial intelligence as builders. As they build, the children are solving problems and communicating about the work in their groups, which also gives Mary an opportunity to see linguistic and personal intelligences at work.
It's like, let's say somebody tries to escape. They run out, this opens, the alarm goes off, and then shackles go on their necks and start choking them.
These kids have been in here a number of times doing initial explorations. And initially, I don't intervene to the degree that I do today. Is there going to be a story that goes with the jail?
Yeah. Oh, look at the
and with the ship?
Yeah.
I think the challenge for a teacher is not to cut the exploration period short. That you feel the pressure of wanting to make it pay its way, get it to an academic place so that, oh, well, they're not just building and playing, or they're not just painting and playing. When you really are willing to control your desire to move too quickly to using it for academic purposes, you get a lot more out of it when you finally do.
Today, Mary concentrates on Jose and notices he behaves very differently while he's engaged in building, which is apparently one of his strengths.
I found out that Jose is a builder. I worked with Jose all last year, and the last couple of weeks watching him build has been a real eye-opener for me. So Jose, are you going to build another dome and see if you can put them together? And Jose likes to kind of hang back, and he wants you to sort of encourage him. He wants you to kind of pull him into things. And it was interesting for me to see him in an area where not only was he not coy and was he not asking to be pulled in, but he was just going in headlong with a tremendous amount of energy.
Yeah.
Jose actually is a very good writer, but the same thing, Jose is very coy. You kind of have to pull him into writing.
You got to make a box, a flat box, not a 3D one.
So you're talking about making a bottom
make
box,
a box.
top box?
And then you make another
And the
box.
other day, when he first did the geodesic dome, he immediately wanted to write, and he has 3 or 4 steps already.
We'll stick, and then on the corner of each marshmallow, on the corner of the box.
Jose can very often be very private and be more comfortable working by himself rather than in groups.
But it's supposed to be a sphere, so we're gonna need something to hold it up like that.
And the fact that he was so willing and so enthusiastic about interacting with the other 2 girls that were working at the table was an eye-opener. So it was a different Jose that I saw in this context.
We made ours.
Mary organized a building activity which she knows will primarily tap into bodily kinesthetic and spatial intelligences. She sees good examples of those intelligences among some students.
Like, the boat is over here, right? Let's say the boat is over here. And then the car goes like that, drops them off, handcuffs, and then just puts them in the boat. The boat brings them in. They open this little passage door right there, and then they put them in the jail.
She also takes the opportunity to observe that Julio uses his linguistic intelligence to invent an elaborate story in connection with what he and his classmates are building.
I think in free exploration you have to appreciate everything that's happening in free exploration so that you feel good about it. So for me, I do a lot of talking to myself about, look at what they're doing with the thinking. I mean, look at the language development. I mean, there are performance standards that have to do with speaking and listening. And if I went through the performance standards right now, I could list a dozen ways in which the free exploration portion really demonstrates what you're looking for in the New York City performance standards of speaking and listening. They were talking together in groups. They were giving each other feedback. They were doing certain kinds of problem solving. So one thing that's helpful for teachers who always feel like we need to get to writing something down, we need to get to having some sort of physical product, is to go back and look at the performance standards for speaking and listening and see to what a large degree that free exploration is addressing those standards.
Your homework last night was to determine, if you were to do a project in class, which area or talent would you like to exercise in class. So what I'm going to do today is break you into groups according to the talent that you chose.
With a class of 35 students in a 45-minute period, Ms. Bennett orchestrates an activity which offers these students a chance to use their individual talents to express themselves. They could select one of 4 talent areas: building, writing, drawing, or performing arts. Each talent area had 4 to 5 students, and they had approximately 20 minutes to create a product which described something about their individual personalities.
Creative writing I always incorporate into the class, in order for them to get in touch with the activities, the discussions that we're doing, and just for them to really begin to take a closer look of the events and the characters that we're discussing in connection to a poem, a story, or even a novel or a play. But here, giving them materials to start to build was something that I never do. No, it's going to be one end product that all of you have a representation of yourself in. And you're going to need to be able to explain what you've created and how it reflects each of you. Intentional. Usually it's the reading, the writing, and the group discussions is what I usually stick to. I try to vary it depending on the material that we're covering, but this was just a lot more freestyle.
In this group of builders, there is very little conversation as the students rely on their spatial and bodily kinesthetic intelligence to complete their task.
I don't know the students. They are freshmen, so they didn't really know one another, and this activity allowed them to share a little bit about themselves and then do some cooperative learning as well, because they had to collaborate with one another to produce their end product.
I said intelligent, well-mannered, and a little shy. I put intelligent, lazy, and patient.
Really shy and hardworking.
Funny, loves to draw, and energetic.
The artist immediately started to draw, which is a preferred medium for students with developed spatial intelligence. But they had a more difficult time in collaborating with each other about a story that would represent their group.
No, would you read something that said, here, read this. This is your homework, car trouble. No, you'll be like, I have to go watch TV or something.
I give you a 5-minute warning. So you have 5 minutes to complete your end product.
However, when they were running out of time, they had no trouble translating their idea into a pictorial format.
It's hard for a student to sit down in a classroom setting. They're not home with the radio on. They're there in the classroom at their desks, and it's hard for them to get those creative juices flowing. Yet once they were able to communicate that through drawing, they had a brilliant story that they were able to then tell through the pictures.
What we did was there's 5 of us in the car, and we're traveling, and we get a flat tire, and once something bad happens, everybody has different feelings about it. So we each have our own personalities and react to the situation differently.
When they went home to decide what type of workstation they'd want to participate in, that gave me an indication of what their interests are. But then their brilliance really came out in the finished product.
I know what you're thinking. You're thinking, what in the world can this thing be? Well, we call it the Pyramid of Truth. Yes, people, the Pyramid of Truth.
They took a talent that they liked to exercise, and then they went with it, and their intelligence did show through the various activities.
The money shows, obviously, that we love money. The phone card, well, we like to talk on the phone. And, well, these program cards and the Band-Aid, they represent our love for school. The toothpicks covered with the marshmallows represent that we're sharp, yet we are also safe and protected, so we don't poke anybody's eyes out with the marshmallow.
I'm now, as their teacher, tremendously challenged. Now that I know their abilities and how excited they are in working in groups like this and in hands-on learning, now I'm challenged to incorporate that in as many lessons in 8.5 weeks as I can. A big advantage to this particular course is that half of the cycle will be spent on a large-scale novel, Things Fall Apart. The first half of the cycle, however, is smaller pieces, working with poetry, a couple of hymns, and then also folk tales. Now, the folk tales would be an excellent vehicle for them to do dramatizations and have a mixed group, where we could take students who have varied interests, put a builder, a drawer, an artist, a performer, and a writer together, and then somehow present the folk tale to the class, making sure that they incorporate each of those talents.